Now let's quickly go to PgAdmin. So PgAdmin is a graphic user interface which we usually use to write PostgreSQL queries. Now in front of me here is a PgAdmin software which I've downloaded to my system and I've installed it. I already have PostgreSQL version 16 installed in my system. Now what we'll basically be doing is for us to now I've already launched it and then there's a password authentication which I've inputted before I could see all the databases I have in my PostgreSQL. All right, so these are the available databases created by me. By default, if you are just starting, you should be seeing only the Postgres database. The other ones were created by me. Now, first and foremost, what we would want to do is for us to create a database. And how do we create database in Postgres or PgAdmin? So what we do is we right click on the database and then we have this create option and click on database. So in this class, we'll be giving our database, let's give it a name. So let's just say store. Let's say we are building a store database. Now, once you've done that, you can give it any name of your choice, but I decide to go with store. So I click on save. We now have the store database here. So what next are we going to be doing? We want to create tables because a database is a contain data tables, all right? And then table contains columns. So if you go to schema and then we go to tables, we do not have tables in this database. So the first and foremost, what we would have to do is for us to build build tables. And we are kind of building a store, let's just say an e-commerce store, where we have customers. We also have payment table. We would have something like the address table. You have orders table. So the customer table will contain information about the customer, such as their customer ID. For every customer that is created on the platform, an ID should be attached to them, and these ID are all unique. Now we should have their first name. We should have last name. Please take note that two different customers can have first name and last name. But let's just pause here. So we create the table. Now we right click on the store database and we click on query tools. Once we do that, we have the query editor in front of us. So we have to start writing the queries. And the syntax for creating tables are set. Create table. And then we give it a table name. And in this case, we'll be giving the table called customer. So this is a syntax for it. Now, after this thing, add parentheses, and this is where we'll be including all the columns we want in the customer table. Now, I said before that whenever you are building a table, ensure that you make all the provisions for the column. All right. So it's a long-term development. You are not looking at adding more columns later on. This is not like the non-SQL database. So this is relational database. So you build the columns that you want to use for this database or for this particular table. So how do we do this? First and foremost, we'd want to create what is called the customer ID. So the customer ID is a column, and then we are going to apply a data type, and the data type we'll be applying is what is called a serial. And now what this serial does is that it's it creates numbers, it creates values which will automatically increase whenever new users are signing up or making purchase on the website by increasing, let's say, auto increment 1, 2, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 1, plus 1. So it's kind of an auto increment in value. Now, after the customer ID, we will have what is called, we want to make it the primary key. So we want to make this to be a primary key. So with a comma, we have another one called the first name. So this is going to be another column name called the first name. And the first name, the data type is going to be, we have what is called the varchar, which is a variable character varchar. And then we provide limits to this. So we want users, they can't exceed 50 characters. So no user can have their first name or would have their first name to exceed 50 characters. And then we are going to apply constraint here called the not null. So we don't want users to leave the first name empty. We also have what is called the last name, and this is going to be varchar, and then let's leave it as 50 as well. And then it's also going to be a not null constraint here. I think we also need information about their email address. So let's just say email. We can say email address here. An email address would have a varchar with a constraint. Let's just use 150. And it's going to be unique. All right. So no two persons can have the same email address. So we apply a unique constraint, and also we apply a not null constraint to this. We don't want it to be repeated, and we don't want people to leave the email field empty. So when we are inserting values to our columns, we must provide email address. Now, I said before that the primary key contains the unique and then the not null. So it therefore means that the customer ID field is not going to be open, not going to be empty to say, and then it's also going to be unique. So a primary key takes into consideration these two different constraints, the unique and the not null. So for now, we have 4 different columns in the customer table. I may likely want to add their I think for now, let's just stop here. And what we'll do is we just execute this query. So let's execute the query by clicking on this. So we have query returned successfully in 52 milliseconds. Now, if we go to the tables and then I refresh, we now see that we have a customer table. And if you open the this guy here, the columns, we now have the customer ID, right? First name, last name, and email address. So if you click on constraints, we can see that we have customer has a primary key. All right, we have here as a customer, it is a primary key. So we've created the first table called the customer table. Now, if I write a query that will select everything, like select asterisk from a customer table, once this is executed, we can see below here that we do not have any data. There is no data sent to this table that we've created. So now, how do we insert information to a table we've created? So let's quickly do that. Now we write insert into then the table name, which is customer, and then we provide the different columns we want to insert. So the first one was what? Customer ID. So we have a customer ID. And please take note that we said that the customer ID is a primary key and is also serial. So values are going to be automatically generated for the customer ID. So in that case, there is no need for us to provide the parameters for it. So we can start with first name here, first name, last name, and then we have an email address, Then we write values. So what's going to be the values? The first one, let's give a name, Kenneth. Let's use Kenneth. And then what's going to be the last name? Ibrahim. And then we also have the email address. So all these are text. So you enclose them with single quotation. Please take notes because they are text. Now, if there are numbers, you can just type a number. So in the email address, let's say kenny@gmail.com. All right. Now, this is how we can insert single information in a database or in a table. So by writing this single row. Now, if you want to include more records to it, we can copy this and then we can paste it and paste it and paste this. Now, if I execute this query, we are going to be having error because our Gmail column, we applied a constraint that says it must be unique, meaning that we cannot have 2 different emails that are similar, the same. But in the case of first name, we can have multiple Ibrahim, we can have multiple Kenneth. So in that case, we would just want to change the different names here. So let me comment this out. And how do we comment this out in Windows? Control and then /. So we comment this out. So if I run this query, it says we've inserted 1 record and query returned in this. So if I decide to comment, let's comment everything now. And then let's select everything from customer table. if I run everything here, sorry, I think I didn't comment this out. So if we run everything, so what do we notice? Even when we didn't provide the customer ID parameter here, we can see that the SQL understands that we are building columns and we apply the serial data type to it. So it automatically generated number 1 for us. So if you're adding a new one, we will now have 2 here, the first name and the last name, which obviously we are going to be providing. So let's clear this out. And then let's uncomment all this out. Then instead of another Kenneth Ibrahim, let's provide Grace. So now we have all the information we need. We are now inserting 3 different records again. So adding to the one we already have. So once I run this, so there's an error here. We have an error that says we are not supposed to include this. Right, so we must include commas. Please take note, we have to include comma here. Right, include commas, and then let's run this. So we've inserted 3 different records. So select everything from customer. Let's comment everything here. So running this, we've inserted everything. Kenneth, Grace, Peter, Glory. So we've created our customer table inside the store database. So this is basically how we can create and insert record into our database or our table. So in the subsequent classes, we'll be building more tables, and also we will now include relationships by building what is called foreign keys, citing the foreign keys to the primary key in this customer. So what I'm basically saying is that we'll be building a different table called the payments table, and then this payment table will have the customer ID inside the payment table. So we can now build relationship in case we want to cite from this table, which is called the customer table, the first name and last name. But in this case, we do not have what is called the amount column. But in our payment table, obviously we will have the amount column. So as a data analyst, you may be asked to find out information or filter information from the both tables, where you may likely find the first name from the customer, and also you may be asked to find the amount from the payment. So you have to join these 2 columns tables together to find the information, and we do that by using a unique key called the customer ID. So before that time, let's just stop here. I don't want to bore you with many lectures in a single video. So see you some other time. Thank you for coming by.